In the previous video, we talked about leveling and screwing a vanity in place. This time, we'll show you how to transform your bathroom with a stylish and functional tile backsplash. Installing a backsplash may seem intimidating, but with the right tools and techniques, it can be a fun and rewarding DIY project, from measuring and cutting the tiles to applying the thin-set mortar and grout. So let's get started. Here's a list of the items you're going to need. Painter's tape. We use painter's tape to protect the countertop and backsplash from getting caulk all over them and to make a tidy straight line. Plastic sheets. Cover everything that you don't plan to grout or caulk. Thin-set tile mortar. Pick your mortar based on the sort of tile you are using and where you are installing it. In this case, we used a thin set designed for wet locations such as a shower, and we checked to be sure it was rated for walls. Spacers. In this case, we chose 1/8 inch as the gap for our tiles, so that's the size of spacer we bought. Grout. We chose a pre-mixed grout from Mapei that is self-sealing. Here are a few tips. Make sure you do not buy the rapid setting stuff. If you're not careful, you might find it is set rock hard before you clean the tiles, and that's not good. Also, check to be sure that grout can fill the spacing you choose for between your tiles. A wet tile saw or a manual cutter. I use both. Tools, including a tile setting trowel to mix up the thin-set mortar, a notch trowel, and a tile float. Buckets and sponges. Before you start, read the spec sheet for your thin set and your grout. As I said, you choose your thin set based on the application to be sure it is rated for use on walls. Also, make sure your notch trowel has the right size notches for the mortar. You don't want to lay tile by trowel and error. Understand the pot time. In other words, the amount of time you have to work once you've mixed your thin set mortar. For a small project like a backsplash, this isn't as much of a priority as it is with a large project like tiling a whole bathroom or a floor or perhaps the entire surround for your bathtub. Here, Amy is laying out the first row of tiles and then marking them for me to cut. We spaced the tiles away from the countertop the same amount as the width of the grout line. As we always do, Amy worked out the layout of the tiles and we planned so we didn't have any short bits at the ends. You really don't want to do this by tile and error. I measured and cut the tiles and Amy used thin set to stick them in place. We put the spacers in between the tiles to keep a nice consistent gap. Notice that we didn't use them at the corners where the 4 tiles meet. If you lay spacers flat at the corners between the tiles, it's pretty hard to get them out, and you might find yourself going as far as trying to cut them out with a grout saw. Use them standing on end like you see us do. That way, it's much easier to pull them out. I marked the tiles with a Sharpie and cut them to the right length using a manual tile cutter. Tile cutters are quick, and as long as you want to cut tile on a straight line, they're probably all you need. They have a diamond wheel to score the tile, and then you press down on it with the bar and it snaps along the score line. The instructions from our tile cutter say use an appropriate amount of force, whatever that is, so that's what I do. I use a Sharpie since even a Sharpie washes off most tiles, and I keep in my head that I want to cut on a particular side of that line. We do our best to plan to have the cut edge of the tile either in a corner or at the end of a run. Don't accidentally flip them the wrong way around, or you will have an odd-looking cut edge between the 2 tiles. Cut edges look better at the end, and if you use trim around the border like we did, it helps hide that edge. As Amy spread the thin set, she was careful there were no gaps, and we worked quickly to set the tiles in place. After laying out 2 rows, I cut miters in some trim tile, and we tiled a border around the backsplash. Notice how Amy applies mortar to the back of the tile like she's spreading peanut butter. We waited for the full amount of time recommended by the mortar manufacturer, which was 18 hours, and then Amy grouted the tile with a grout from Mapei. One advantage from Mapei is they have color-matched caulk, which is indistinguishable from the grout. When Amy does grout, she scoops some onto a tile float and pushes it into the gaps between the tiles like you see here. When you do this, you should avoid the bottom gap, because you want caulk between the countertop and the backsplash, not grout. If you put grout there, it will certainly crack. Amy used a damp sponge and a circular motion to wipe excess grout off the tile. Before you start, you really need to be sure you have time to finish grouting and wiping off the excess before the grout sets. You might want to work in sections. If the grout bag or tub says rapid set, it is not very forgiving, and you might find you cannot get the grout off the tile. The only thing you can do to solve that problem is to remove the tile and start all over again. Once the grout was cleaned up and had set, I masked off the tile and the countertop and applied a bead of color-matched caulk. As soon as that started to set a little, I peeled off the painter's tape. You don't want to wait too long to do that, or you will find the painter's tape and the caulk are well stuck together. Now that the backsplash was done, we could move on to installing the sink, which I'll cover in the next video. Remember to take your time, measure twice, and use the right tools for the job. Using the right tools can be critical, so it's worth spending the money. Always read the spec sheets before you buy thin-set mortar and grout. Once you start with a tile backsplash, you'll have the skills and confidence to tackle bigger tiling jobs. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and I'll be happy to help. If you enjoyed this video, or even if you just want to keep listening to my mesmerizing voice, please like and subscribe. And don't forget to click on the bell next to the word subscribe so you get notified when I upload another video. Thanks for watching. Hey, this video reminds me about the time we had a contractor tile the roof for free. He said it was on the house.